Hello, and welcome to Discover Your Unique Mind-Body Type. What is your dosha? My name is Dr. Joanna Carmichael. I am a registered nurse and a doctor of metaphysics and divinity. I am also a practicing Ayurveda, meditation, and yoga teacher. I practice as a transformational nurse coach, and today I'm going to be teaching you about learning your unique mind-body type and learning to make lifestyle choices in harmony with that type. So first, I'm going to give you a brief introduction on Ayurvedic medicine. So according to Ayurveda, which is a natural system of healing that originated in India over 5,000 years ago, individuals can be categorized into three basic mind-body constitutions known as doshas. These three categories of nature are known as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. The three doshas are derived from the five elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth. So depending upon your dosha, you will benefit from different foods, colors, aromas, activities, sounds, and body care products that heal and maintain physical and emotional balance. So the first thing we're going to do is you should have downloaded and printed the dosha quiz. And the first part of the dosha quiz is called your prakriti or your prakriti, which is your unique nature. This dosha quiz is used to determine the energetics that are predominantly expressed in an individual where balance will be maintained. So this is basically about how you have been most of your life, and we're going to go through all of the sections of the quiz. So the questions in this part are very general. This gathers information about your basic nature, the way you were as a child, the basic patterns that have been true throughout your life. So it's not really symptom-based at all. If you happen to have developed an illness as a child or as an adult, remember how you were before the illness, before the malady started. Choose the answer that most accurately represents you, and just be aware that this does not change much through the lifespan. So whatever this quiz turns out to reflect is where your state of balance for you as an individual. There are no good or bad elements, and there are no good or bad doshas. Everyone has all five elements within them and all of the three doshas contained within them as they govern different aspects of the mind-body physiology. It's just a matter of how these things are expressed in an individual. So let's go through the quiz, which you should have in front of you. So first, you're going to go through and determine what most accurately represents you with a number 5. Number 3 is what secondarily represents you. And number 1, what rarely or not at all represents you. So the first one is, I am thin, lanky, and slender with prominent joints and thin muscles. Or I have a medium symmetrical build with good muscle development. Or I have a large, round, or stocky build. My frame is broad, stout, or thick. The next section is weight. Again, you're going to use the same scoring, 5 as to what most accurately represents you, and 1 to what rarely represents you. So you're scoring each one. So low is I may forget to eat or have a tendency to lose weight. Moderate, it's that it's easy for me to gain or lose weight if I put my mind to it. Heavy is I gain weight easily and have difficulty losing it. The next section is eyes. My eyes are small and active. I have a penetrating gaze, or I have large, pleasant eyes. The next section is evaluating complexion, remembering that it's throughout your lifespan. So for example, if you had acne as a child or as an adult or some eczema or something like that, you want to kind of put that aside and think back to a time when those things were not occurring for you. So in general, my skin is rough, dry, or thin. My skin is warm, reddish in color, and prone to irritation. Or my skin is thick, moist, and smooth. The next section refers to your hair quality. My hair is dry, brittle, or frizzy. My hair is fine with a tendency towards early thinning or graying. Or I have abundant, thick, and or oily hair. So as you can see, while we're going through these things, the different ways that our physiology expresses. And we're going to go into the energetics, the 5 elements, and how they derive down to the 3 doshas. So this will make a lot more sense once you finish your quiz and find out what your unique mind-body constitution is. Moving on to the joints. My joints are thin and prominent and have a tendency to crack. My joints are loose and flexible. Or my joints are large, well knit, and padded. Moving on to your sleep patterns. I am a light sleeper with a tendency to awaken easily. I am a moderate sound sleeper, usually needing less than 8 hours to feel rested. Or my sleep is deep and long, and I tend to awaken slowly in the morning. And I just want to point out that we're aware that these sleep patterns can change throughout the lifespan, but again, just reminding you to go back to what was normal for you. Moving now to body temperature. My hands and feet are usually cold, and I prefer warm environments. I am usually warm regardless of the season and prefer cooler environments. I am adaptable to most temperatures, but do not like cold, wet days. And again, this is not a totally exact, so just choose the one that most accurately represents you. Moving on to temperament. I am lively and enthusiastic by nature, and I like to change. I am purposeful and intense. I like to convince. Or I am easygoing and accepting. I like to support. And hopefully also as we're moving through these, you're thinking other people might pop into your mind about the qualities that they have. And the thing about Ayurveda is that it helps you understand not only yourself better, but helps you understand other people. And it makes us more compassionate and accepting when we understand why others are the way they are or why they do what they do. Under stress, I become anxious and or worried. I become irritable and or aggressive, or I become withdrawn and or reclusive. So as you're finished scoring these, you can add up all of the numbers. Just give you a moment to do that. And then you'll be able to see which dosha, Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, is expressing more fully in your constitution. Are you more Vata, more Pitta, or more Kapha? So the highest number will reflect your primary mind-body constitution. The number that is next to the highest would be your secondary dosha. So just make note of that number. And then the last number will be what is expressing itself minimally in your constitution. So as you complete this first part of the quiz, this next part of the presentation is going to help you understand what does this all mean. So the 5 elements, or the Pancha Mahabhutas, are the 5 elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth. And everything in creation is made up of these 5 elements in some way, shape, or form. For example, the table that my computer is sitting on is made up primarily of earth and water. It's solid, it's stable, it's hard. And then while the energy of thought or breath is more made up of space and air. It's light, it's airy, it's unpredictable, and it has a very, very different quality than the hard table. So space, or Akasha, I'm sure many people have heard of the Akashic records, where everything that's ever been thought, said, done, past, present, future is stored. So Akasha is that space of pure potentiality, infinite possibility, unlimited possibilities. And so everything actually starts in thought. It starts from the space of pure potentiality. Then we move to air, or vayu. By the way, everything in Ayurveda is taught in Sanskrit. So I'm giving you the Sanskrit because on some level of your consciousness and awareness, you're going to get the information. So we not only speak of it in English terms, but we also use the Sanskrit. So air is vayu, and that represents change. So think of that like the wind, that it's always changing, it's unpredictable, and it's light. Then we have fire, or tejas, which is transformation. When fire is put to something, it transforms. So just think of like when you are baking a cake and you have all the ingredients of flour and sugar and milk and eggs, and those things have qualities in and of themselves. But when heat is added, when fire is added through your stove or your oven, it transforms into a cake and it can never go back. So this refers to transformation not only of the body, but also in mind and emotions. When you have an aha moment, or something is triggered inside of you that helps you look at something in a different way, that is the same type of transformation of fire. Then we have water, which is jala, or ap, and that governs cohesiveness. So water brings things together. It helps things meld and mold, and it's fluid and it's flexible. And then we have earth, or prithvi, which governs form and protection. So that's that hard, stable, solid energy of form and protection. And so everything in creation is made up of some varying combinations of these 5 elements. So the 5 elements derive down to the 3 doshas. So Vata, that I referred to earlier, is formed by the combination of space and air, or Akasha and Vayu. Pitta is formed by the combination of fire and water, or Tejas and Jala. And Kapha is formed by the combination of water and earth, or Jala and Prithvi. So as you can see, not only do the elements have very different qualities, but when they're derived down to the 3 doshas, the quality of the person, the mind-body constitution from the dosha quiz that we just did, is going to have the qualities that are predominating in the physiology and in the mind. So the 3 doshas govern the basic functions of the body and mind. So Vata, its primary function is movement. So it governs all areas of movement in the body. So that's the breath moving in and out. That is the blood going through your circulatory system. It's the thoughts, the synapses that create thoughts in the brain and the mind. The movement of food through the digestive tract. So all movement is governed by Vata. So here you'll be able to see that all of the 5 elements and the 3 doshas are operating within everybody. It's just a matter of what predominates. Pitta's primary function is transformation. So the transformation of food into the nutrients that our body absorbs and uses to function. Transformation, again, in the mind and emotions, when you have a shift in perspective, is the best way to do that. These are the processes of detoxification, transforming food into nutrients and releasing the toxins and releasing the waste. And then we have Kapha, which governs primary function, primary function is protection. So this is our musculoskeletal system. This is the synovial fluid in our joints that keeps them from cracking and rubbing up against each other. Without Kapha, we would be in a puddle on the floor. It governs our whole musculoskeletal system, This is the fluid that cerebrospinal fluid that protects our brain, the pericardial fluid that protects our heart, the synovial fluid in the joints, and the moistness, the unctuousness that helps us experience flavor when we put food into our mouth and we start to salivate, and the lubrication throughout our digestive tract that helps us to digest food. So the second part of the quiz is called the vikriti, and you will answer these questions from the perspective of how you have been feeling for the last 30 to 60 days. This targets current imbalances that are created and healed through the choices that you make. So we're going to go over these, and each slide has each section. So we're going to go over all the sections so that you can most accurately complete this part of the quiz to find out where the imbalances are occurring for you. So this assesses your current life situations. These questions are more specific and more symptom-based because it's from the last 30 to 60 days. This gathers information about what has been going on for you, recent stresses, illnesses, life changes, observations that you've made just doing your life. Questions are about specific issues in body and mind related to each dosha. And it is scored as not at all, occasionally, or very often. This is the part that changes based on your diet and lifestyle. Sometimes we think we have very little control over what's seemingly happening to us, but we actually have a great deal of control as to how we respond and what we put in to our body and what we use on or with our body. Everything in Ayurveda counts. What you put in and on your body, how you handle stress, how you handle relationships, a job, career, family, it all counts and affects our mind-body physiology. So the scores from each section are total to the highest body and the highest mind score, which indicate where the imbalances are occurring and what you need to work on first. People who are dealing with significant health issues, what will predominate first will be related to everything else that's going on. So by treating like the highest score, other issues are going to be addressed in the process. So for example, if you're dealing with inflammation within the body, starting to decrease that fire energy will naturally affect every other system where inflammation might be occurring. So starting with Vata mind, on your quiz, that's the very top of that page. So again, you're scoring not at all. It's like 1, 3, and 5 again, not at all, somewhat, occasionally, or very often. So we're going to go through these individually. I have been having difficulty with mental clarity or the ability to focus my attention. Not at all, somewhat, or occasionally or very often. I have been feeling overwhelmed, worried, or anxious. My life has been turbulent and chaotic. I have been starting new projects, but having difficulty completing them. I have been having difficulty falling asleep or have been awakening easily. I have been having a hard time making decisions. I have been having trouble following through on the commitments that I've made. I've been feeling restless if I'm not constantly on the move. I've been acting impulsively or inconsistently. And I have been more forgetful than usual. So taking a moment to score this section, adding it up, and to see what predominates. Now, as you can see, this is asking you questions not only about you specifically, but in every situation that you can be dealing with in your life. This is about the mind and the emotions. And this helps identify resistances where, when you're not achieving what you want in your life, there are resistances that are popping up that have to do with many, many factors. And these resistances are what needs to be worked on. So once you've had a chance to score that, we're going to go to Vata body. Again, you'll score these as not at all, somewhat or occasionally, or very often. I've had a dry throat, have felt the need to frequently clear my throat, or I have a dry cough. I've been experiencing gas, cramping, or bloating after meals. My appetite has been inconsistent. I have been suffering from chronic pain. My skin has been dry or flaking. My bowel movements have been hard and dry or are irregular. For the men, I have been having trouble getting sexually aroused, maintaining erections, or experiencing orgasms. For the women, my menstrual cycle has been uncomfortable or irregular, or I'm experiencing vaginal dryness. I've been getting lightheaded when I get up quickly. My hands and feet have been uncomfortably cold. I've been having muscle twitches, cramps, or heart palpitations. So now take a moment to score these sections on your quiz. And at the bottom, you'll see a place where you can put these numbers. So just with the brief introduction to Ayurveda, the 5 elements and the 3 doshas, keep in mind that Vata is made up of air and space. So that means there is no fire, water, or earth. So these qualities of air and space are what tend to make Vata people more ungrounded. They have more of a light, lanky frame. Because there is no water in the physiology, that's where constipation can come into play. Pain can come into play. Cracking joints can come into play. There's no solidity. There's no grounding, bringing you back down to earth. Constipation can actually be a mechanism by which the body tries to ground. We lovingly say that Vatas can have 2 feet planted firmly in the clouds. I just wanted you to take a moment to absorb that, the qualities of Vata and how they may be operating in your mind-body physiology. So now we're going to move on to Pitta. Again, not at all, somewhat occasionally, or very often. So this is Pitta, refers to Pitta mind, remembering that Pitta is fire and it's a little bit of water. They're not equal, it's primarily fire, but there is some moisture in there. So I've been feeling discontented with my life. I've been judgmental and critical of others. I've been feeling jealous of others. I've been experiencing anger towards others easily. I've been feeling irritable or impatient. I've been compulsive with difficulty stopping once I've started a project. I've been strongly opinionated, freely sharing my point of view without being asked. I've been frustrated by other people. I've been feeling the need to outcompete others. I've been ruminating over situations from the past. So take a moment to score the Pitta mind section and making a note at the bottom of your highest score. So in discussing Pitta mind, you can hopefully start to see the contrast between Vata mind, the air and space components of that dosha versus the fire and a little bit of water components of this dosha. There's more intensity with this one because fire is more intense than space and air, even though it needs space and air to burn, but it's definitely got an intensity that Vata does not have. So now we're going to move on to Pitta body. Scoring it again as not at all, somewhat or occasionally, or very often. So in your body, I've been feeling overheated or have been experiencing hot flashes. Remember, this is the last 30 to 60 days. I have been having headaches accompanied by light sensitivity or distorted vision. My eyes have been itchy, irritated, red, or watery. I have been having more than 2 bowel movements per day. My appetite has been excessively strong. I have been getting reflux or heartburn, or I have an ulcer. I have been sensing the accumulation of toxins from the food, air, water, alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs in my system. I have been diagnosed with some form of a liver malady. I have been diagnosed with high blood pressure or coronary heart disease. My skin has been itchy, irritated, prone to breakouts, or I have been diagnosed with an inflammatory skin condition. And now take another moment to score yourself. Add up the numbers and put your highest score at the bottom of the page under Pitta body. And again, hopefully you can start to see the contrast. We learn Ayurveda in this very natural way of just simply observing the qualities of the 5 elements and the qualities of the doshas. The beautiful thing about it is that you don't necessarily have to memorize a whole lot. It's just all about the energetics of the elements. So you can see the intensity of Pitta body is quite different than the intensity of Vata body. Most diseases and illnesses in Ayurveda, about 80% are actually Vata initiated, because Vata governs all movement. By treating those errors in movement, whether energy is moving too fast or too slow, can go a long way in helping to heal different conditions. It's really about relaxing the physiology and the mind, because once we relax, everything can function better. The Pitta dosha, the fire and a little bit of water, that is intense, penetrating, has heat. The illnesses and diseases that are more Pitta related have to do with inflammation. And when you think about that, that really makes sense. When you have an inflamed joint or an infection, there's heat, there's redness. It's very clear. So hopefully you can start to see the distinction. The last part of the quiz is going to be Kapha. So starting with the Kapha mind, answering not at all, somewhat or occasionally or very often. I've been dealing with conflict by withdrawing. I've been accumulating clutter in my life. I've been resistant to changing my routine. I've been having difficulty either leaving a relationship, a job, or a situation, even though it is no longer nourishing for me. My short-term memory has been of concern to me. I've been intending to be more physically active, but have difficulty exercising regularly. I have been eating more out of my emotional rather than nutritional needs. I've been having difficulty getting going in the morning. I have not been confident in my ability to cope with challenges. I have been having a hard time moving beyond the past. So take a moment to score the Kapha mind. And just placing that number in the Kapha mind score at the bottom of the page. A point I'd like to make about this is that we're answering these questions as with non-judgment, a great deal of detachment, and a great deal of compassion. This is just what it is. There's no good, bad, right, wrong. It's just what's been happening. And the more honest that you can be with yourself about what is actually going on in your life, not only with your digestion or your what's going on in your mind, but what's going on in your life with your relationships, your job, your children, your education, whatever is going on. Everybody is dealing with a lot of different things these days, and it all coalesces to either keep us healthy and nourished or to be detrimental and the cause of a disease or symptoms. And now we're going to move on to Kapha body. My ankles tend to swell. I tend to be sluggish or lethargic in the morning. I have a lot of phlegm or mucus production. I feel nauseated or full for an extended time after eating. I am more than 10 pounds over my ideal weight. I have high cholesterol or atherosclerotic heart disease. I have been having episodes of asthma or wheezing. I fall asleep easily after meals. I have a tendency to have elevated blood sugars. And I have frequent sinus congestion or respiratory infections. So now take the time to add up your score. And place that number in the Kapha body score at the bottom of the page. Now, on the last part of your quiz, on the last page of your quiz, there is a section to complete should you feel the need to do so that specifically refers to your joints and how your joints specifically feel and your weight. And you're invited to complete those at your leisure. These things have to do with joint pain, cracking, popping, especially in the morning. If your joints are inflamed or hot, if they're painful even at rest, if your joint pain is relieved with cold or it's relieved with heat. Are your joints stiff in the morning and relieved with activity as you get moving? Do you have joint pain that is dull and aching? And are your joints swollen? Again, this is just for your information. And you can score that accordingly. The section on weight refers to your current weight and your current eating patterns. Just note whether you are underweight, at your ideal weight, or overweight. Again, without judgment, with compassion, and not putting anything on it other than what is a fact for you at this time. Under stress, does your appetite diminish? Do you become ravenous? Or do you eat even when you don't feel hungry? So that emotional eating that we have all experienced. And lastly, is it easy for you to lose weight, to maintain a stable weight, or is it easy for you to gain weight? So now that you've had a chance to do the mind and the body sections of this quiz, you're going to take the scores at the very bottom of that last page and put them in the totals section. So take your largest Vata mind score, Vata body score, Pitta mind score, Pitta body score, and Kapha mind score, and Kapha body score. And see where your scores are the highest. So you can see from the Kapha body and the Kapha mind, Kapha being made up of primarily water and earth, you can see how different that is from Vata. I like to think as Kapha as the opposite of Vata. The only thing they have in common are that they are both cold doshas, because water and earth is cold and space and air is cold. Other than that, they're very opposite. So as light as Vata is as heavy as Kapha is. That really helped me learn Ayurveda and start to think of this in this 5-element tridoshic perspective. And then I think of Pitta in the middle, and I think of it as fire pit. So Pitta, fire. And I hope that helps you. So Kapha scores have to do with heaviness and sluggishness. So as I said, about 80% of illnesses and maladies are Vata. Pitta illnesses and diseases have to do with inflammation and heat. And Kapha illnesses and diseases have to do with congestion. Too much earth and water causes congestion. While we need it for grounding, too much of it causes weight gain, high cholesterol, heart disease, and can cause us to have respiratory issues and swelling in our physiology, holding on to too much water, too much earth. So Vata that is made up of space and air. This is the principle of movement and change. So we're going to delve a little bit deeper into this to help you understand your quiz a little bit better. So this is identified by the wind element. So Vata type people, if you're a Vata constitution, primarily going back to that first part of the quiz, that's your constitution. That's what you were born with, what you came in with, and how you are throughout your lifespan. So a Vata type person tends to be thin, light, quick in thought and action, and change is a constant part of their life. They don't like routine much, but yet it's routine that balances them. When balanced, they are creative, enthusiastic, and lively people, usually life of the party type of people. But when it's in excess, it creates anxiety, insomnia, dry skin, irregular digestion, constipation, and that's because of the lack of moisture in the physiology. So hence the dry skin, dry hair, the 2 feet planted firmly in the clouds, creating anxiety. And they can have a tendency not to finish things. They will be very excited about new projects or new ventures or things that they're doing in their life. And when you check back in with them in a couple of weeks and say, how's that thing going? And they say, oh, I'm on to something else. So that's Vata out of balance. When they finish something, it's usually amazing. Their stress response is, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? So it's anxiety. Okay, so if you have predominantly Vata from that first part of the quiz, you want to get back to being a balanced Vata. The second part of the quiz shows where the imbalances might be, and a Vata person is going to have a tendency to have more Vata imbalances. So that's something you want to be mindful of throughout your lifespan. And this, I want to be clear that this is not about having equality in all of the doshic expressions. So we're not looking for equal scores on Vata, Pitta, and Kapha on that first part of the quiz. That is not at all what we're trying to do. That first part of the quiz is you. That's your constitution. That's what stays the same and stays stable. So for example, if you are a Vata person, but you have gained weight, it doesn't mean you've turned into a Kapha person. If your constitution is that you have a thin, light frame with prominent joints, you have a Kapha imbalance. You're still a Vata, but you have a Kapha imbalance that you need to work on to release that weight. That's too much earth and water. And that's the only way we look at it, is in terms of the energetics. Again, no judgment and with a great deal of compassion. So I just want to make that distinction, that the second part of the quiz is what's changeable and how you decide to make lifestyle changes and in your diet, rest, exercise, stress management, and in your life and relationships and career. These things affect how these energies operate. So going to the Pitta constitution, the principle of transformation. Transformation is represented in the digestion of ideas, sensory experiences, emotions, and food. People with a predominance of Pitta tend to be muscular, more of a medium build, and they're smart and determined. When they are balanced, they convey warmth, intelligence, and are natural-born leaders. When in excess, they can be critical, irritable, and they have the illnesses of inflammation, as I discussed before. Their stress response is irritability and aggressiveness. What did you do? And so as I'm going through these and you're reflecting on yourself and your own constitution and what is a natural way for you to be and act, hopefully you're starting to think of other people too and what their expression is. Pittas tend to be warm. So there are throwing the covers off at night while a Vata is going to be putting them on at night, just as an example. And again, illnesses of inflammation. So you want to cool that fire down, and hopefully you can see the distinction. Air is feeding fire for sure. So within the fire and the water, there is air and space. There's air and space in everything, but Vatas don't have any of the other elements. And then moving on to Kapha, water and earth, the principle of protection, nourishment, and stability. People with a predominance of Kapha tend to have a heavier frame. They think and move more leisurely and are stable and devoted. I like to call them Kapha loves because of their constitution being thicker and heavier, they're just usually lovely people and fun to hug. When balanced, they create calmness, sweetness, and loyalty. But when they're out of balance or when the energy is in excess, they can have weight gain, congestion in the physiology, and resistance to healthy change. So these people can be your couch potatoes, don't want to get off the couch. They need to exercise and should exercise, but it's in their constitution to want to be at rest. And again, it's not that any element is good or bad or any dosha is good or bad. It's just the way the energy operates. Their stress response is withdrawal. So pull the covers over my head. I don't want to deal. And as you can see, all of these stress responses are, where we all need to work and where we all need to do like our personal inner work to see how we can improve on creating more of a restful awareness response where we respond rather than react. So over 90% of our food and lifestyle choices affect our gene expression. Not so much about heredity and who your parents were. And by the way, your parents and your ancestors determine your dosha when you come into this world, when you're born. There are doshic parts of as you can see, doshic parts of the body. There are doshic times of the day. There are doshic parts of the lifespan. There are doshic parts of the year. So for example, the Pitta season is the summer. It is when the sun is the highest in the sky and is giving off the most heat and light. Then we move into the fall, and what happens in the fall? It becomes windy. Okay, so that's Vata expression in the universe. So the wind and the unpredictability, the cooler weather, lacking, the sun it expresses itself much less. We're going into the darkness, the more intuitive, the more feminine time of the year, the more yin expression of the year and of the elements. And that season lasts usually until the early winter and into the spring. And then we move into Kapha season. The Kapha season, again, is earth and water. After the snow has fallen and the rain has fallen, the earth is saturated with moisture. It's unctuous, it's cool and cold. And that is the Kapha season of the year. And then as we approach the late spring, starts to move back into the Pitta season. So just to give you an idea and a feel for how these energies operate. As it relates to the lifespan, when you're born into your teenage years, that is the Kapha time of your lifespan. And what usually happens to little kids, they get diseases of congestion, ear infections, little colds and flus, runny nose, things like that. And they're solid and stable little beings. Then as they move into the high school and college and the phase in your life where you're building, you're getting educated, you're choosing a career, you're choosing a partner, maybe getting married, having children, that's the Pitta time of the lifespan. There's determination. You have goals you're trying to reach. That's determination. That's goal setting. That's the fire of wanting to transform, wanting to create. And then as you approach your 60s and 70s and beyond, you start to get into the Vata phase of the lifespan. The Vata phase is that space and air where the physical becomes less and less important because you're preparing to go into Akasha as you leave your physical body when you expire, when you literally expire, again, about the breath. So you notice as people age, they sweat the small stuff a lot less. There's a shedding sometimes of weight. There's a shedding of worries and stress and anxiety. And sometimes there's actually a decrease in the amount of clutter. Like you see people downsize. They want to create a simpler life. And again, and the diseases, again, are about, the elderly, what do they have? Arthritis. Things where their joints are cracking. There's a lack of moistness, unctuousness, lack of grounding. They become lighter. They sleep longer. So, and then there's the doshic parts of the day, where from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is the Pitta time of the day. In the daytime, it's when we eat our largest meal. And because our digestive fire is the highest and we can burn it off easily. During the nighttime, as we're sleeping, and we should be in bed with lights out by about 10 to 10:30, detoxification occurs. That's when the body really heals itself. You get your best rest between 10 and 6. And sleeping 10 to 6 is not the same as sleeping 12 to 8. You get your best rest before midnight. Then from the Pitta time of the day, from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., you're in the Vata phase of the day. And Vata, that air and space during the day, should be a very creative, lively, and enthusiastic time of the day. At nighttime, that's when you're dreaming and you're really working on things in other dimensions, sometimes leaving the body to do so. And then from 6 to 10 a.m. and p.m., it moves into the Kapha time of day. That's the more sluggish, heavier time of day. In the evening, it serves to support getting ready for bed and starting to wind down your day and preparing for sleep. In the morning, it's a good time to exercise because you want to invigorate Kapha. So as we relate to the three doshas, Vata to help with imbalances and excess. And when we speak in terms of imbalances, we're always speaking in terms of excess. So when you have an imbalance, it means too much of, not too little of. The too little of will express as another issue within the physiology. So too much Vata, we want to relax. Too much Pitta, we want to cool and soothe. And too much Kapha, we want to invigorate. So getting that couch potato energy to get up and move something will absolutely affect the physiology. And even when you're feeling sluggish in your mind or accumulating clutter or anything like that, it's movement that is going to invigorate and move that energy and start to heal that imbalance. So in Ayurveda, we digest everything. Everything we ingest through our five senses influences our physiology and thereby our doshas. So not only do we digest the foods that we eat, we digest all of our experiences. So just like if somebody compliments you, you need to digest that. If somebody betrays you or hurts you in some way, you have to digest that as well. As a metaphysician, I believe that almost everything, if not literally everything, has an emotional, spiritual component to it. All illness does. And illness is a message, or symptoms are a message, not to just be treated with a medication so that you can continue with the habits that may have gotten you there in the first place. So by becoming more in touch with your unique mind-body constitution or your dosha and where the imbalances are occurring for you, you can treat these things as the seeds of illness so that they don't progress to something like a tumor on a lab report. So we literally become mindful of what we're thinking, saying, and doing in every moment of every day, which is actually spiritual practice. And once we can get that well in tune with ourselves and what's going on in our environment and in our relationships and everything like that, things become clearer and clearer as to what the right actions are. When you eat a food, you know how it makes you feel. You know how it makes you feel in 2 hours, in 4 hours, and when you're eliminating that food. We bring that type of mindfulness into our lives, and it becomes a really beautiful way to live, so that we can decrease or eliminate the need for medications and toxic chemicals and things that are really not about our holistic health and healing, but are just about treating the symptoms and not the cause. So creating a dosha balancing routine ensures optimal emotional and physical well-being. In future courses, we're going to delve more deeply into Ayurveda and how you can create these dosha balancing routines and how you can eat better for your health and well-being and for your mind, and also how you can become empowered to make the lifestyle changes you may need to make and release all toxins in your life, which could include your job, relationships, friendships, and things that are not nurturing to your mind-body physiology. So we're going to go further with a deep dive into the doshas and their qualities. We're going to talk about, there will be a course on meditation as the cornerstone of Ayurveda, dosha balancing diet and activities, and Ayurveda as true spiritual practice. So I really thank you for your time and attention. If you'd like to get in touch with me, my contact information is in this last slide. You can visit me at vedicalchemy.org or pharmatodharma.com. I welcome comments and questions, and I look forward to seeing you on the next course. Thank you again.